Hi everyone, I'm Dr.Animaction. Welcome to the second video in my Animated 80s Japan Edition series. In this video I'll be covering every cartoon that premiered in Japan during the 1981 calendar year. Based on my YouTube analytics, these videos aren't quite as popular as the normal US series, so I'll be keeping them here as alternating videos, but we'll get through the whole decade eventually. Also, based on my viewership geography, maybe I'll try to focus on finishing the UK, but follow it up with Canada and Australia, as those are my highest viewership countries, outside of the US. I'll add them to the Patreon poll as options, and we'll see how it goes. But this week the poll participants wanted to go back to Japan, so that's what we're doing. For those of you who enjoy Japanese cartoons and anime, I also have a comparison series planned for some time in the future to look at the US imports and see how they differ from the Japanese source material, so keep an eye out for those, at some point. Real quick before we start, if you love all things animated, then don't forget to like and subscribe, as doing those are a huge help for the channel. And now, on with the show.
Yeah, it's a bit much.
Well, because not many of my viewers seem to be from Japan based on the metrics I have available, I'll be doing this series a little differently than how I do the US version. I won't be covering what shows stayed on the air and what series dropped off, and I won't be trying to make broad observations about the programming trends and significant events, as I don't have the same cultural basis for that as I do for the US series. So instead of an informational trip down memory lane, like the main series is, this one will mostly be an informational trip without the memories. Also, instead of categorizing the shows by how they impacted each year, I'll be sticking to a standard set of categories each episode. I hope that works for everyone, and if you are a Japanese viewer, then I'd love to hear your memories about these shows and the decade in the comments. Thanks in advance for sharing those, as I love learning about life and pop culture from other countries, especially from here in the 80s. Enough of that though, let's get on with it. One genre of shows that seems to be pretty widespread in Japan, at least during this era, were those based on history or historical fiction. There were quite a few of them in 1980, and this year was no different. First in this category is Ai no Gakko Kur Monogatari. This one is based on a young boy's journal and follows him and his friends in 19th century Italy, learning life lessons from their wise teacher. Specifically, the journal is a historical record of Enrico Bettini from the Italian city of Turin, who was a real person that eventually became a highly respected surgeon and politician. The journal that the series was based on, though, was a fictional work from the 1886 novel Cuore, or Heart, by Edmondo de Amicis, which uses the journal as a story device. To be perfectly honest, I have no idea if the real Enrico Bettini and the writer of the journal in the story are supposed to be the same person or not, and I couldn't really find anything that stated which was the case definitively. If they're not, consider part of that our Italian history lesson for the day. The show came from Nippon Animation and ran for 26 episodes on the station MBS. The next series in this category should be familiar to my UK viewers, or at least recognizable to any of you who watched the 80 to 85 UK edition of this series. D'Artagnan and the Three Muskehounds was a series broadcast on the BBC in 1985, but it got its first airing in Japan here in 1981. The show is essentially a retelling of Alexandre Dumas' classic novel The Three Musketeers from 1844, but using a cast of anthropomorphic dogs. Like the last series we talked about, it also ran for 26 episodes on MBS, and it too came from Nippon Animation. Next on our literary list we have Belle and Sebastian, which was based on the 1965 French novel Belle et Sébastien by Cécile Aubry. It told the story of a bullied kid named Sebastian and the huge Great Pyrenees dog he finds that's been falsely accused of attacking people. He and the dog become friends as they flee southern France to protect him from being put down. It came from the production house Toho, famous for the Godzilla series, and aired for 52 episodes on the network NHK. Wiki says that the series aired in France this year as well, but I couldn't find a source to corroborate that. Also, it was apparently picked up and aired here in the US on Nickelodeon in 1984, so I guess I missed that one. My bad. Moving on, Japanese kids also got a series based on American novelist Louisa May Alcott's 1968 and 9 duology Little Women. The show was called, appropriately enough, Little Women, or sometimes Little Women's Four Sisters. In the spirit of openness, I'll admit to never having read the novels, so I don't know the story of the cartoon either. I do know it came from Toei Animation and aired for 26 episodes on Tokyo Channel 12, though. But brushing aside my early American literature shortcomings, which, side note, was a course I actually did take in college, though in my defense it focused more on colonial-era literature, the next series Japanese audiences got this year was based on the best-selling book of all time. Superbook was a Christian series that told animated versions of Bible stories. These stories are framed by the journeys of a kid named Chris Pieper who finds a talking Bible that can send him through time to see the events unfold firsthand. Kind of like the never-ending story. This one actually came from Tatsunoko Productions, the studio responsible for Gatchaman and the Time Bakken series, and ran on TV Tokyo for 26 episodes. It also got a second follow-up series, but we'll talk about that one in a later video. The series apparently also came to the US in 1982 and aired on the Christian Broadcasting Network, which is where the well-known 700 Club series aired. The network apparently moved from satellite to cable in September of 1981, but this one didn't show up in my US research. Sorry about that. Wow. I guess this series gets to be a collection of apologies for shows I missed in the US, as well as coverage of Japan. There was another Nippon animation series that came out this year and aired on Fuji Television for 50 episodes. The Swiss Family Robinson, Flown of the Mysterious Island is a story loosely based on the 1812 novel Swiss Family Robinson by Johann David Weiss. The show added a new character in the form of a Robinson family daughter named Flown and ran as part of the World Masterpiece Theater series like last year's Adventures of Tom Sawyer. It, like the novel, follows the family during a year spent stranded on a tropical island. And because 2 wasn't enough, this one also aired in the US on the Family Channel in 1989. So hopefully third time's a charm, and that's the last one I missed, at least for this year. And lastly in this category, we have one that's actually pretty beloved amongst a lot of the American crowd out there as it came to our shores in 1986. Ulysses 31 is a sci-fi interpretation of Homer's Greek mythology epic The Odyssey from the 8th century BC. It was created as a joint production between Japanese studio TMS Productions and French studio Deke Audiovisuel. The story followed Ulysses, captain of the starship Odyssey, and his crew as they searched for Earth after the angered gods stole its location from them. It's an odd anime adaptation for the time, as almost no changes beside the soundtrack were made between the Japanese version and the one we watched over here. This one lasted 26 episodes on NBN in Japan, while simultaneously airing on channel FR3 in France. The next category that I'm using for this series is slice of life. Most definitions I've found of that genre refer to normal people and real or mundane drama, or looking at the wiki definition as it specifically pertains to manga and anime, a genre that takes place in recognizable settings and focuses on human relationships. So for these videos, I'll be putting anything that has a contemporary setting and focuses on more dramatic or serious topics in this bucket. There were several that fit that criteria this year. First, we have Dotakon, which is a series about 11-year-old genius girl who builds a little robot brother and a little robot sister for herself. They end up going on adventures fueled by the genius girl's various inventions. Some of you may argue that this isn't really a slice of life, but besides the adventures, the series primarily deals with the relationship between the show's 3 siblings, so I think it fits pretty well in here. It ran for 28 episodes on Fuji TV and was produced by Kokusai Gasha, or the Movie International Company Limited. Next up is another series by Nippon Animation that ran for 13 episodes on Fuji TV. Dorotaro the Balloon, or Fuzun non Dorotaro if you prefer, is about a young anthropomorphic cat who returns home to his sister and adoptive parents on Cat Island, only to find they've all become very different people. Or cats. Or cat people, I guess. I can't really say much else about this one, as every source that talks about it uses the same one-line story summary, so I'm just going to move on. Our third series here is Hello Sandy Bell, which is about a young girl in Scotland as she searches for her mother with the help of a local countess. She's confronted along the way by the rich girl next door who gets jealous that she doesn't get as much of the countess's attention and also wants to marry the noble lady's son. This one sounds like it could be the absolute picture for the slice of life definition. It ran on TV Asahi for 47 episodes and was developed by Toei. The next series I'm going to talk about sounds like it could be a comedy, which is my next category, but I'm really not sure, so I'm just going to drop it here. Maybe I'm being influenced by the title. After all, it's called Ohio Spank, or Good Morning Spank for us English speakers. Airing for 66 episodes on TV Tokyo, this series is about a dog who lost his owner and a girl who lost her father, both to accidents at sea, and they become friends one day after meeting at the beach. Also, the dog, Spank, seems to be somewhat anthropomorphic and also pretty clumsy. The series follows the antics of the pair's daily lives. This series was done by TMS Production. Lastly in this category, we have Honey Honey, another one from Toei. Running for 29 episodes on Fuji TV, this one follows an orphan girl and a jewel thief as they try to keep her cat, who swallowed a ring that will identify the princess's rightful suitor, I guess, away from all the men who want the job. It turns out throughout the series that the girl is the princess's sister, which further complicates the story. This is another series that came to the US on Christian Broadcasting Network, which it turns out eventually became the Family Channel, in 1984. Apparently all the research I did for the US list was atheistic, as I really dropped the ball for that particular channel. I was so close to making it through this category without one, too. Oh well, moving on. The next category I'm using to sort things into is comedy, as there have been several across these first couple years. And parents, some of these may not be shows you want me telling your kids about, so fair warning. They don't really adhere to US standards due to some more, shall we say, adult things. I'll specifically save those two series until the end of this section and tell you when to skip. Just wanted to give you a heads up. We'll start this section with another Toei production, Dr. Slump and Arale-chan. Running for 243 episodes on Fuji TV, this one follows an inventor who builds a robot girl in a village full of anthropomorphic animals, which is called Penguin Village, in case you're wondering. The series mostly seems to deal with the robot, whose name is Aral, whose name is Aral, Arale, whose name is something, deal with her naivete and misunderstandings about human behavior. The fact that Arale can barely see without glasses and is super strong just amplifies the hijinks. I almost missed this one on the US list, as Harmony Gold tried to adapt it for us in 1984, but it was never picked up, so I dodged that bullet. Our next series is called Chie the Brat, or Jorinko Chie, from TMS Productions, and aired on MBS for 64 episodes. The story in this one could probably also be slice of life, but it sounds almost exactly like a 6-year-old girl version of Dennis the Menace, so I'm considering it comedy. That's also pretty much all there seems to be to say about the show as well. Just take the premise of Dennis the Menace, replace him with a bad-tempered 6-year-old Japanese girl, and watch the chaos that ensues. Also, premise of Dennis the Menace is actually kind of difficult to say. Next up is Ninja Hattori-kun, which is an incredibly long-running series that racked up 694 episodes and 11 specials. Coming from Shin-A Animation and airing on TV Asahi, the series is about a 10-year-old slacker named Kenichi who becomes best friends with a young ninja named Hattori. The show generally follows the exploits that result when Kenichi asks Hattori to help him with his problems or schemes. Sounds like this is a pretty massive franchise in Japan, with a live-action TV series during the manga's original 1960s publication, multiple animated films, an NES game, and a reboot anime in 2013 that's still going today. Apparently, the reboot was available on Netflix for a while here, but I never caught any of it. So the next series is one I also mentioned in my 1986 US episode during the Galaxy High School entry, and is another very long-running Japanese series. Urusei Yatsura originally ran for 194 episodes on Fuji TV across 4 seasons. It was initially produced by Puro Animation before being handed to Studio Dean for the final 2 seasons. The story starts with the scenario of aliens coming to invade Earth, but agreeing to leave the planet alone if a random kid they chose can hunt down their representative and touch her horns by a certain day. The kid manages to do so when the girl he has a crush on promises to marry him if he wins. He tricks the alien Lum and prevents an alien invasion by winning the game of tag. However, Lum misunderstands his excitement at the promised marriage and takes it as a proposal, falling in love with him and choosing to stay on Earth as a regular high school student. Obviously, she's anything but regular, and antics ensue. The series got a currently ongoing reboot in 2022, as well as several animated movies. For the next 2 series in this category, I'm torn between which one sounds stranger to my American sensibilities. The first is one that I wasn't sure whether to put here or in Slice of Life, but it sounds pretty freaking funny. The Gutsy Frog 2 is about a kid named Hiroshi who squashes a frog named Pyankichi. The frog then becomes a living decal on the kid's shirt, which coincidentally enough is the only good shirt that Hiroshi owns. The flat frog, as he's referred to in the series, can talk and reach out of the shirt with super strong arms. The frog also loves females of all types, from human to every variety of animal, and the series follows the pair in their daily lives as Pyankichi provides a running commentary and a stream of unsolicited advice. It was a TMS production that aired on Nippon TV for 30 episodes. It also got an animated movie and a live-action TV series. Okay, parents, here's your chance to skip ahead. Go to the time mark here to stick with the family-friendly content. For those of you who didn't skip, the other one is called Miss Machiko, and is about a middle school teacher who constantly ends up in situations where her underwear, or more, is exposed to the boys in her class. It becomes a common enough occurrence that the kids just start pranking her to see how often they can catch a peek or cop a feel, which they do pretty regularly. It came from Studio Puro and ran for 95 episodes on TV Tokyo. Oh, and it also got several live-action movies as well, and by several I mean like 10, which is extra weird. And the last series I want to talk about in this category is Dash Cappe, which is the second entry in this video from Tatsunoko Productions, and it ran for 65 episodes on Fuji TV. The series could probably have gone in the slice of life section, as it's about a short kid named Cappe, as in less than 3 feet tall short, who's a basketball prodigy, and his adventures playing sports in high school. However, I chose to put it here in comedy, as Cappe also has an obsession with panties, and specifically those of the white variety. He becomes enamored with his basketball team's coach initially, and the assistant coach eventually, both for their choice of undies, which he's always trying to catch sight of. Oh, and he struggles against his rival, who happens to be a dog, for assistant coach Akane's affection. Yeah, really. The dog wants to marry Akane. Oh, and he can talk and walk on 2 legs, but only Cappe can understand him apparently. And here I was talking about how weird Turbo Teen is. The next category that I'm using for this series is my channel's main focus, action, but specifically action of the non-giant robot variety. Those are coming later. We'll start here with a series called Manga Mito Komon from NAC Productions. The show has a pretty interesting core concept about a shogun and his companions traveling across Japan in disguise. They stop in various villages along the way to investigate mysteries and punish wrongdoers. It's kind of like a Shogunate-era take on Scooby-Doo, but with samurai. It lasted for 46 episodes on TV Tokyo. Next up, we have Queen Millennia, which some of you may recognize from my 1985 US list, as it was one of the 2 series that was combined to create the Americanized Captain Harlock and the Queen of a Thousand Years. In this series from Toei, a scientist discovers a 10th planet out beyond Pluto, but with an erratic orbit that places it on a collision course with Earth. The planet's several times larger than ours and will completely destroy us on impact, or, I guess, close passing by due to its gravity. However, it turns out that this new planet, called La Metal, is inhabited by invaders. That planet's ruler wants to abduct as many humans as possible to use as slaves before the Earth's destruction, and has placed sleeper agents here to facilitate those efforts, apparently having done so like the last time the planets approached each other 1,000 years ago, which I don't know why the metal didn't destroy us then. I don't know. Suspension of disbelief and all that. Anyway, the sleeper agent ends up questioning the plans of her ruler and offers to help defend the Earth against her home. Also, the impact's supposed to occur on 9/9/99 at 9:09 and 9 seconds. Coincidentally, maybe, the manga's original creator also created 1978's Galaxy Express 999, which I mentioned last video. So, I don't know if maybe the number 9 has some kind of significance here, but it sure shows up a lot. Oh, and he also created the aforementioned Captain Harlock and space battleship Yamato. Sadly, he passed away just a few months ago in February of this year. And ignoring the awkward transition, I'll move on to my next series from the year, Tiger Mask 2. This was a show about a professional wrestler. So between this and Dash Cappe earlier, I guess I could have had a sports category. Oh well, this one came from Toei again, like so many of the others I've already covered this year, and ran on TV Asahi and Yomiuri TV for 105 episodes. It followed the struggle of a young orphan who grows up to assume the mantle of his hero, Tiger Mask, and become a new hero for the next generation of kids. As you can probably tell from the title, this was the second Tiger Mask series, with the original having aired from 1969 to 1971. The franchise also boasts a pair of animated films that are both from 1970 and a live-action movie from 2013. Lastly in this section comes another entry in the Time Bakken series, similar to last year's Rescue Man. Yato Detaman follows a group of heroes and another of familiar-looking villains as they compete to find the mystic Firebird. The Firebird travels through time, taking on the appearances of important artifacts in the various eras it travels to, and whoever finds it becomes the rightful ruler of the Kingdom of Fur, 1,000 years into the future. The series could probably have gone into the comedy category as well, seeing as all of the Time Bakken series have some good ongoing humor, but with the superhero themes I decided to put it here. It, like all Time Bakken titles, comes from Tatsunoko Productions and aired on Fuji TV for 52 episodes. That brings me to my final category in an anime mainstay, mecha. This is where I'll be putting any shows that prominently feature robots of the giant or combiner variety. Let's start here with the series Fang of the Sun Dugram from Nippon Sunrise. Running for 75 episodes on TV Tokyo, this series tells the story of a group of rebels fighting to free their colony, called the Lawyer, from an iron-fisted governor turned dictator backed by the Earth Federation. The rebels call themselves the Deloyer 7 and use various types of power armor in their battles against the government forces. Eventually, the governor is overthrown in a coup, and his son takes a small group of friends and forms a group called the Fang of the Sun. They escape the capital with a new model of combat armor called the Dugram and join the rebellion. It kind of has some Gundam or Vodam vibes to it. Next, though, we have Beast King Go Lion, which if you don't recognize from this footage must mean you're in the wrong place. This is the series that we in America would adapt as the Lion Force portion of Voltron. Originally produced by Toei, this one ran for 52 episodes on Tokyo Channel 12. When it came to America, there were an additional 20 episodes created and added to the end of the series, stretching its run up to 72 episodes before shifting to the Vehicle Force. We'll talk about that one later in this series, though. Also, I'll be making a comparison, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, about Voltron at some point, so I'll go more into depth about the differences there. For now, let's just move on to Studio Kokusai Gisha's series Galaxy Cyclone Brogger. This 39-episode show ran on TV Tokyo and told the tale of a mercenary team that uses a giant robot to keep the solar system safe from criminals by taking on missions the police won't or can't. The eponymous robot actually appears most often as a car, but when needed can transform to its robot mode and grow to giant size using something called synchron energy. When in its giant form, the robot can also change into a spaceship to transport the mercenary team. However, this growth can only last 24 hours before needing to be recharged, which makes it pretty different from a lot of the other giant robo-series of the time. Next up, we have Golden Warrior Gold Lighten, another Tatsunoko production. In this show, a boy named Hiro finds a gold lighter, like a Zippo-type lighter fits in his pocket, which is actually the disguised form of the giant robot Gold Lighten. Lighten and a team of similar robots defend Earth from an alien invasion, accompanied by Hiro and a group of his friends calling themselves the Bratty Rangers. This series lasted 52 episodes on TV Tokyo. Then we have a series that I'm guessing any anime fan of the 80s is familiar with, at least tangentially. Go Shogun came from Ashi Productions and ran on TV Tokyo for 26 episodes. The story focuses on a scientist's son, Kenta, who joins a team of adventurers that use giant robots to combat the evil organization responsible for his father's death. The team uses a teleporting fortress called the Good Thunder to strike against Dokuga, which is the villain organization, all across the world. They also use the giant robot Goshogun to disrupt Dokuga's plans wherever they find them. If the name sounds familiar, it may be because you recognize it from my discussion of Macron 1 in the US video for 1986, as it's one of the two series that show is made from. So we've only got 2 more to go, so bear with me. But the next is Robo King Dioja, the story of a prince in exile who helps the oppressed people of the galaxy using a giant robot. The prince assumes the fake name of Bochan, and he and his friends use the powerful Dioja to fight evil in all its forms. Some of my research indicates that it's a mecha version of the story of the real-life person Mito Mitsukuni, who was a Japanese lord in the 1600s, but I'm not nearly Japanese history scholar enough to verify that. From what I've read, the real-life Mito Mitsukuni was famed as a politician and historian, not a traveling adventurer, but who knows? I mean, probably plenty of Japanese people who may have learned about him in school, but definitely not me. But anyway, that brings us to our last series for this video, 6-God Combination Godmars. This one's about an alien emperor who wants to conquer the galaxy. As Earth begins to explore beyond our own solar system, they catch the Emperor's attention, and he decides to deal with them by sending a baby and a giant robot to destroy the planet. Apparently, once the kid, whose name is Takaru, grows up, he's supposed to detonate a bomb in the robot. Turns out that being raised from infancy by a loving human family makes someone not want to blow up the planet. So instead, he takes the bomb robot, which is also a powerful war machine, and uses it against Emperor Zul and his forces.
There is no Dana, only Soul.
Oh, and it also turns out that Takaru's dad didn't really like the idea of sending his infant son off to be raised by strangers and die, so he sent 5 other robots secretly to defend the kid, hence the 6 combiners of the title. This one came from TMS Productions and ran for 64 episodes on Nippon TV. So that's it. 30 new series that all premiered on Japanese television in the year 1981. Man, even changing the format somewhat doesn't keep these videos from getting pretty long when there's that many shows, does it? Anyway, apologies again for those few series I missed from the US videos. I've got a sneaking suspicion that I'll come across more of those in the future. Regardless, I'll cross that bridge when I get there. In the meantime, let me know what you think about this video and the series in general in the comments. Like I said last time, I can't really do the where to watch for these, as a lot of them never got releases outside of Japan, but streaming services like Crunchyroll are probably a good place to start. If you liked this video, then prove it by hitting the button, and subscribe if you haven't already. I'll have a new poll up for next week's alternating video tomorrow, so check it out if you're interested. Thanks for watching, stay tuned, and stay tuned, as in cartoons. Later.